Hello, Rug Room, and everyone out there watching. This is Rug Rescue Podcast number 4. Very happy to be coming to you. If you don't know much about Rug Rescue, what it is about, it's simple. This is the everyday calls that Paul and I get. Sometimes it might just even be a conversation that Paul and myself are having because of a question I have for him. It could be any type of call, but we're basically trying to break down that call a little bit more for you in a shorter period of time. And the call, this podcast could be 5 minutes, it could be up to 30 minutes. God knows where it's going to go. But we want you to try to get a little bit of an insight of what we're asking about, what we're thinking about, why we're looking at what we're looking at. That way you can kind of think about that process when it happens to you. If you haven't heard podcast number 3, which I know you haven't because we haven't posted it yet, it was amazing. It is a really, really good podcast that I strongly recommend for you to check out. So, but Paul, how you doing today, buddy?
Doing good. Good to be here.
It's absolutely good to see you, buddy. We haven't had a chance to really talk much and hang out much because we've been so busy. But we have had a chance to talk a little bit about rugs and things going on and stuff we're planning on doing. But I know you had an interesting call come in. Tell us about it.
Okay, so I have this customer called. They have an oversized silk rug, 100% silk rug, and it's been in a residence, but it had been there for many, many years and hadn't been cleaned. So the property owner called around to the rug shops and tried to get somebody to wash it for them. And the answer that I heard on the phone, or the story was, nobody wanted to touch it because it was a heavily soiled 100% silk rug, hand knotted rug. They had furniture on it, so they had areas where there was no traffic, and then of course areas where there had been a decade's worth of traffic or more. So finally what happened is the local carpet cleaning man came to clean carpet in the house, and the homeowner said, I have this silk rug and I can't get anybody to clean it. Could you clean it? And so he kind of reluctantly, he recommended, he said, well, so-and-so cleans rugs, and this other guy over the other side of the town cleans rugs, and you could send it to this guy. And she goes, I've already talked to everybody and nobody will touch it. So I don't know all the details on why. Maybe it was price, maybe it was something else, but she talked him into cleaning it. So he cleaned this oversized silk rug on location with his carpet cleaning equipment. Well, after it dried, it had issues with light and dark areas. Depending on which direction you looked at the rug, it was either dark over here and light over there. But when you switch to another side, because I specifically asked them that, then it would be light and dark on the rug. So they sent me pictures, several, and I looked at them, and I called back. So this was over a day or two, and essentially what I said was, it looks like texture issues to me. How did you groom it, and how did you do that? Well, a lot of these carpet cleaners, they kind of groom with a wand, and they don't really focus on grooming like us rug washers do.
Or that beautiful nylon grooming rake.
Yes. So what I said to him was, well, this is really a texture issue. The carpet actually looks, clean, looks good, but I think it's a texture issue. So he was a little nervous about rewashing it and cleaning it because, again, he probably didn't charge enough to really clean it twice. And I said, what I think is going to work on this is we got to figure out what the pile direction is. Where is the pile lay? And we talked about using a piece of paper and a pencil, a piece of paper and a pen, and rubbing the paper, and it would go in the direction of the top to the bottom of the rug. And then we talked about secondary lay, how it would go either to the right or to the left. And so I encouraged him to do the paper pile lay test. And then I sent him Silky Soft, and I sent him a grooming tool for doing silk rugs instead of the, you know, carpet cleaning grooming tool that he had. So we got him a professional grooming tool. We got him the Silky Soft, and I said, you don't have to re-clean it. You don't have to do all that. Just go in there and lightly mist it, get it damp, and then work with a primary lay of the carpet. So start at the top, groom it towards the bottom, and then after you get it all groomed in, then go ahead and do your secondary lay and go a little bit to the right or a little bit to the left, depending on whatever the paper told you. And so anyways, that was done and everybody was happy. So a great little, what a lot of us maybe would think, well, I know that, or I could have done that, or that wouldn't happen to me. But, you know, people don't, you know, they don't always know what to do. Sometimes we make mistakes. And I'm sure that if that was a nylon carpet, it would have came out great without all that extra work, but it wasn't. It was a silk rug. And it was in bad shape, and everybody was happy. So he got a nice result from that.
Now that's the beauty of it. When it goes good and we get that end result. Matter of fact, we were talking about in the last podcast, you know, how we do get our egos going a little bit. We love to hear the after effect. You know, did you or I, did we nail it? Did we tell them to do the right thing? Did we guide them the right way? And when we do, we get to brag about it. We get to be happy about it. We go, hey, tell everybody, because we want people to know that we really are there for them, and we want them to trust us. Now let's break this down a little bit, Paul. That call comes in. Now that's, you know, that's a pretty, frankly, it's a tough call, because when you have someone who calls you and says, I have a silk rug, the first thing that you and I do, Paul, is what? We go, how do you know it's silk? Did you test it? Have you felt it? Did you do a chemical test? Did you do a visual test? Are you looking at the knots on the back of the rug? Or are you looking at the connection of the fringe? Because, you know, it could be mercerized cotton, it could be rayon. That's number one, right?
Yes, because a lot of rugs now are being sold as art silk, vegetable silk, vegetal silk, bamboo silk, and we know these are all code names for rayon.
Yep.
And silk's the queen of fibers. I mean, it's the most valuable fiber out there, and it is awesome. And then you have the lowest performing fiber, the bottom rung of the fiber ladder, which is rayon. And so a lot of these rayon rugs are being sold as a silk rug. In fact, a little side story, I wanted to buy a silk rug so I could have one for class. And there was a going out of business, if anybody's ever heard of that, but a rug store with a going out of business sale. So I walked in the front door, and a salesman walks up to me. He goes, can I help you with something? I said, I would like to buy a silk rug. That was the only thing I said. I didn't say how large. I didn't say how old. I didn't say what color. I said, I'd like to buy a silk rug. He walks me over to a rayon rug.
I remember you told me the story.
And I looked at it, I felt it. I said, do you really think that this is silk? And he goes, oh, you want mulberry silk. And then he took me over to an actual silk rug. Yeah. So that's the marketplace that we live in, is where people are selling the lowest performing fiber as a silk fiber. So first thing is you got to really find out if it's silk. But again, they sent me pictures. There was a picture of the tag. The rug had been in the family for a long period of time. There was a high confidence level that it was silk. The property owner thought it was silk. The tag thought it was silk. The carpet cleaner thought it was silk. So I kind of assumed that they had done their homework, and it looked like silk, you know, just from the pictures. Well, and I asked a couple questions about it.
And here's the thing. One of the reasons we go this direction right out of the gate and start asking this question is because we've had a number of people especially you, Paul, you've been around longer than I have, but between you and I, we have had a lot of people where they call us up and they've got a customer on their ass, and it's getting heated. There's a problem. You ruined my silk rug. You done this, you done that. We ask for the evidence so we can look at it. And then all of a sudden we're looking at a rug going, this isn't silk. But the customer believes that it is. That is something that has to be handled right away, because, and we have a podcast coming up about this, where people have not done proper pre-inspection, have not laid the groundwork to their client to make sure they understand something. And then now all of a sudden it's going to litigation, or it's in a bad situation where the referral source that's giving you a lot of rugs is the one who sold the rug to the client. And there's going to be some backlash. But because the pre-inspection wasn't done right, and the company or whoever it is did not have the guts to lay it out right, is now on the hook. And excuse me, I got to remember not to cuss. It's this podcast. I'm supposed to be able to say whatever I want now, right, Paul? No, I still can't cuss. Okay, I won't.
No, you can't.
Okay, so forget that I said SHIT. That was totally messed up. Don't, just ignore it. But you have to protect yourself, and when you don't, it's going to happen. It's going to come back around. Now, Paul, you went right into one of the things that I do as well, is when they explain kind of what they were saying to you, is I want them to walk around that rug. Because as I've learned from Nathan Coots, one of the greatest rug washers in the business, as far as I'm concerned, grooming. And it's always so important. But we out of the gate need to know, and we've got to have the pictures. Is it hand loomed? Maybe it's Tibetan. Maybe it's a machine made. Maybe it's just it could be almost anything. So we need to kind of know that. So as we get into the grooming part of it, because a machine made may not have exactly that first and secondary. A hand loom may go a little bit of every direction. A tufted rug can go all over. But I mean, different things can be, with different types of constructions. So that's another important part, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, this was a hand knotted rug, and it was real high quality, very expensive rug. It's just that the people that owned it didn't take care of it from a cleaning standpoint. And actually what had happened is that there was a change of in their life, something like it was grandma's rug, and then they got it, and it had been in this situation where it had not been cleaned for many years. So, but it was a high-end rug. But yeah, you have to make sure that you're dealing with the actual reality is. Now, sometimes you have a person that's very set on the idea that they have this particular type of rug. It's a Persian rug, it's a silk rug, it's a Navajo rug, whatever they think it is, and it's not. And so how do you break that to them without wounding somebody and making it worse for yourself? Well, again, I tend to look at things as for my own protection and to be professional. I always look at, if I go write stuff down on paper and everything goes bad and I end up in court, and I get cross-examined by an attorney, how am I going to look like I know what I'm talking about? How am I going to deal with that cross-examination? And you could say, well, I'm an expert, or my opinion's very valuable, or all that. That doesn't really mean anything. But if you can do a test, and then you can provide the test results, then it's not your opinion, it is evidence of what the facts are. So I try to stay on that level. So if I'm concerned about what the fiber type is, did I do a burn test? Did I do a chemical solubility test? Did I do a microscopic inspection? what did I do to determine whether that was the fiber that they say it is?
Right.
And on with other than construction, all that type of stuff. So your job is to present the facts of the case. And then you're not throwing anybody under the bus. You're just saying, well, according to my test results, this is silk, or this is not silk.
Absolutely.
And then it's not your opinion, it is the facts.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, I agree with that 100%. That's got to be done. And again, we will be talking about that in another podcast coming up soon here in the future, because we've had a couple situations that I've dealt with lately that have really spiraled out of control, in my opinion, because, some of the things just weren't laid out as good as they could have been. But we'll get into that another time. So, okay, Paul. So now we've determined construction. You figured that out. You determined from what they've told you, from pictures, testing, and everything else. Yeah, we're on the right track. This is a silk rug. So now we're into the aspect of your gut's telling you this is a grooming issue. And we've got to figure out a way to set this pile, reset it, get it looking good, get everything uniform. So there's a few ways we can go about this. We can go chemically, Silky Soft, which you ended up doing in the end. We can go mechanical action, carding brushes, regular soft brushes, which I like the softer ones. I don't go to carding brushes unless I have to. I prefer a softer brush teamed up with Silky Soft. That's the way I like to lean. We can also look at resetting the pile with a, I want to say it's the Roomba, not the Roomba. It's the one that Nate loves. It's that one iron that's rigged up. Remember, he made us buy one, and I went, why is he making me waste this money? Turned out to be one of the best things we ever bought. A light steaming to get the pile to set. That was a good one. I've come to like. So tumbling can actually be another good way to go, depending. I say depending, folks. Anybody watching this podcast, please remember everything we're talking about here. You have to test first. I'm not saying just throw this in a tumbler and walk away. It can be very valuable, yes, but there's a certain time and place for it. So, Paul, we've got options, right? But you went with Silky Soft. Tell us why.
Okay, well, a little more background on this. What the carpet cleaner felt like he had been kind of put in between a rock and a hard place, because he really didn't want to clean the silk rug, but the homeowner basically was saying nobody else will touch it. That was the phrase they used. Nobody else will touch it. So he kind of feels like he got stuck in this situation, and he didn't want to take the rug up and out of the house. He's not set up for that. He doesn't have a tumbler. He's thinking he's got to re-clean it again, because he's thinking maybe it's a cleaning issue that's making the rug look light and dark, like it's browning or soil wicking, or and he's looking at all these things where he doesn't he really just wants me to tell him how to get out of the pickle that he's found himself in.
Yeah.
That's really what he's trying to do. And so I said, well, you got to send me pictures. I'm sorry. I can't visualize all this stuff over this phone conversation. So he said, okay, I'll go get you pictures. So he sent me 3 or 4 of them. In fact, I should have sent them to you so you could use them. But I have to dig back and find them. And then I said to him, I think this is just a texture issue. And then I asked him about, when you walk around the rug, do the light areas turn dark and the dark areas turn light? And, and I ask him a bunch of stuff. And then I go, yeah, I think it's a texture issue. So we're trying to figure out, what he's trying to say to me is, what's a way for me to get out of the problem that I'm in? And Silky Soft was just an easy way to do that without taking it to a plant, because he said nobody really wants to clean it. And without him investing a lot more time into it. And plus, I thought that that's all it was. It is and I brought that up. He didn't think it was a texture issue. I think this is a grooming texture issue. And if you just go re-wet it, you don't have to clean it again. Just re-wet it with Silky Soft. And actually, now I think about it, I told him to brush against the lay one time and stand it all up. Then as soon as he was done with that, turn around and brush it all right with the pile lay straight to the other French, and then brush it a third time with the secondary lay. And it just came out beautiful.
Now, I love it when the great stuff comes up. Even if there's people out there would look at it as such a small thing, especially if they're a rug cleaner, been doing it for years. They'll go, well, why is that a big deal? It is. It's a huge deal. And I want you guys to grab onto what Paul just said. If you're watching this podcast, I'm telling you, this was valuable information. And the reason it's so valuable is because Paul's giving you the answer to something that I have taught him to teach you. Isn't that amazing? Everything he's telling you, I've taught this guy. I am the guy educating this old man, trying to get him to teach you guys and put this education and just let it flourish. Yes, it's me. It's all me. What Paul is telling you guys is so simple. Sometimes you go against the lay. You put that Silky Soft on, and even if you weren't using Silky Soft, sometimes pushing against that lay, bringing those fibers up, and then going back the other way. I don't know if you would call that breaking surface tension, Paul, or not. I don't know the true answer to what that answer is, but it makes a difference sometimes. Sometimes you've got to go against that lay and then start grooming everything back to the right way, right?
Correct. Surface tension would be a totally inappropriate term, but yeah,
okay.
But the idea is good.
Hey, like I said, I've taught you everything, man. I just, sometimes I forget what I taught you and I got to be reminded,
Well, part of the situation is with silk is the denier of the silk is so fine. I mean, it's one denier. So it's a very, very fine fiber. Now, the good news about that is that's why it feels so good. It feels, I don't know, kind of like silky because it's silk. And the reason it feels so silky is because the denier, the diameter, so to speak, of that fiber is minuscule. So when you rub it with your hand, it feels very nice, very silky. Well, the other problem with that is you have a huge surface area. For a little teeny bit of fiber, you have all that area, that surface. And what happens is silk, especially when the chemistry is wrong, when the silk touches each other and you have wet carpet, then you have bonding that is called hydrogen bonding because the hydrogen's in the water. And so there's an attraction for each of those fibers to its neighbor. And then when it dries that way, you end up with those fibers bonded. So now instead of being one silky feeling individual fiber, it's a clump of dozens of fibers. And so now the silk doesn't feel silky. And silk has a shine to it. And a lot of that has to do with the surface reflecting light. Now, when you have a clump of them, you don't get that reflection the same. So the reason we can use Silky Soft is Silky Soft changes the polarity of that surface. And so that binding to each other from the hydrogen bonds and then the drying of them, now you have London forces and van der Waals forces that have kind of stuck all those layers together. You might think of getting a fancy magazine like National Geographic magazine where it's real fine paper and getting that wet. Then all the pages stick together, or a newspaper even. If you get a newspaper wet, let it dry slowly, you can barely peel those pages apart without ripping them. And the finer the paper, like you get a Bible with that real fine paper, and you get it wet, it sticks together. And pulling them apart will rip the pages.
Absolutely.
So By putting the Silky Soft down, you negate those forces, those hydrogen bonds, those London forces, those van der Waals forces. Now you got a new charge. And then when you groom them, the grooming separates those clumps. So when you brush against the pile, you're forcing those fibers to lift up and to move and to unclump. And then when you turn around, go the other way with the pile, you're again separating and getting the right lay so you get the right light reflection. And then when you do it again to the secondary lay, you're getting more separation, more cooperation, more reflectancy, because now we got the pile lay flat. You might remember, or you had a daughter, I had a daughter. They comb their hair, and they don't, when they comb it, they don't just go through it once. 1, 2, 3, they're done. They brush it and brush it and brush it.
Yeah, they take more time than you and I do.
Yes. And that's what you're doing to the silk. Just doing it once isn't enough. So the right polarity, the right chemistry, might say, breaking those bonds, and then getting the pile direction in the right way, in the right direction, so you get the best reflection. Those make the rug look beautiful again. And then when you feel it after it dries, man, it feels silky soft again. And it reflects light evenly, so you don't have those light and dark areas. And again, now this guy, without taking the rug out, without rewashing it, without recleaning it with his truck mount, all of a sudden went from a customer complaint, and they said there, well, wouldn't anybody else touch it? Oh, I'm in a bad situation now because I touched it. And then all it was a grooming issue. Yeah. So it was an easy fix.
So okay. So as we're doing, by the way, guys, this is Rug Rescue podcast number 4, silk rug issues that we're talking about. Paul, before I end this, I want to talk about one more avenue of this, similar to this call that we get. Now, this is almost the best case scenario, because it didn't, crock, it didn't bleed. It wasn't, they damaged the fibers and distorted it. All it was a simple correction. However, we also run into ones that were heavily soiled, and sometimes the stiffness and the grooming didn't go so well because of that soil that's wicked to the top. They almost got it all out, but they got a little bit of a wick going across the whole rug. Gives it a little bit of a blotchier look. That's why you had him walk around the rug, because by him answering that question, you were able right away to go, okay, it's not soil, it's a grooming thing. If it was soil, I just want to take a couple minutes before we end this podcast to give everyone a couple of ideas of what they could do. Now, number one, we know, which is my favorite, rewash it. That's my number one. When it comes to a silk, I got soil that's still wicked up. I'm not thrilled. Unless there's a real reason for me to avoid it, I'm probably going to lean towards rewashing that rug. However, if it's something that's more roll the dice type situation, I might go with an application of LST and a light bonnet. And I mean a really light bonnet, because I want to be careful. I might use a grooming brush. I might miss some LST on it and groom that in. I might tumble it. I might do some other thing. What is your approach, or what jumps into your mind when you think about if it was a little bit of soiling that was doing it?
Well, okay. So when I first got in this conversation, he's going light and dark areas. I'm going, well, traffic lanes, and didn't get it clean, or maybe soil wicking, because I don't know. I'm getting this phone call. He got light and dark areas on a rug that was real dirty. Well, okay, it's probably soil. But talking to him, I figured it was something else. But my initial feelings before I decided it was a grooming issue, well, you can't dust a rug in somebody's house effectively. So I probably, I'm thinking it's probably dry soil that wicked up, because how do you dust a hand knotted rug in somebody's home. So my initial feeling was it's probably soil wicking. But that's why I said to him, send me pictures, and I ask a bunch of other questions. But my first instinct was he's going to have to take it out and do a full immersion washing. And he's going to have to find somebody. Now, none of the local guys want to do it. I know people who want to do it. We can send it to Cam. We can send it to Nate. We can send it to Tony. We can send, there's a lot of people that can do those rugs. And so those were my initial thoughts is, let's get it cleaned properly. But after I got the pictures and talked, I said, this is easy. This is a grooming issue. So, but yeah, you got to think about all those other things, proper chemistry. LST is great for cleaning silk. We do have silk rug shampoo, which is our mildest cleaner. And it's got the proper pH. The isoionic balance for silk is 4.5. And silk performs the best and is happiest and lasts the longest at a pH 4.5. So silk rug shampoo is a pH of 4.5. So that helps a lot. But again, cleaning on location is not the best method because you have so many limitations. And unfortunately, this carpet cleaner cleaned this rug because the customer basically begged him to. And so he ended up, and I'm not saying it's wrong. What he did was wrong. And it turned out great, but it doesn't always turn out that way. And dry soil removal is one of those issues. And then also with a hand knotted foundation, how do you get that foundation clean with surface cleaning?
Yeah.
Well, you can't.
That's right.
So, those are considerations, but you also have to deal with the realities of life.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Again, this is Rug Rescue podcast number 4, dealing with silk rug issues that we've been talking about tonight. Paul, I'm really looking forward to doing more of these. We're going to do one more tonight. Matter of fact, I think we're just going to be able to hit the stop record button. We'll pause for a minute and we'll reset because I think you've got one more great call that you got.
Yes, I do.
And we're going to go into that. So if anybody's watching tonight that is in the Rug Room Live watching this recording, if you want to hang on tight and let us adjust, we will be doing that. But I just want to make sure everyone knows what this show is about. And yeah, I know I've been repeating it over and over, but the first probably 10, maybe dozen calls or shows that we do, we want to do that. Rug Rescue is something a little different. When we come on Wednesday nights on Rug Room Live, we are here to try to tackle different issues happening that you may have ran into. We may talk about marketing. We may be talking about silk rugs, moths. We could be talking about anything. But we're not able to really get into the actual call that we got. We are so proud of this. Both Paul and I are. In 2022, we have saved a lot of rugs that went south with cleaners. And these cleaners that have called us, I love them. And I'm going to tell you why. Because they care. They actually truly give a damn of what they're doing. They call us freaking out, and it's our job to say, calm down. It's going to be okay. Greg Allen, if you ever watch this podcast, you'll know what I'm talking about. Take a deep breath. We're going to figure it out. And most of the time, guys and gals, we are able to find the answer. But it also depends on you. Good pictures, good information, because that's what this show is about. When we get the call, Paul and I start asking questions. Number one is normally pictures, pictures, pictures. We want pictures because if we have the pictures, that helps set the stage. We can start kind of gathering the information. We can start figuring out. And then we're going to ask you a bunch of questions because you have just hired us to be the detective. And we've got to find out, okay, what went wrong? Why did it go wrong? What can we do to fix it for you? And you know what? Most of the time, Paul and I find a way. So that's what this show is about. It will also be about calls that Paul and I have, just one-on-one. Him and I had one the other day that I think is going to be, Paul tells me it's going to be boring. I think it's going to be a great conversation. It's about chlorine dioxide and hydrogen peroxide. I always thought they clashed. Not so true. Can they actually work together? Can they be brother and sister or brother and brother and have and be a team somewhat? Possibly, maybe. Hell, I don't know. I'm not a chemist, but I know somebody who's kind of smart. Yeah, that old bald guy up in the left corner, my buddy Paul Lucas. So, one of these podcasts, we will be discussing that and we'll go into detail, but it's stuff that we feel like not too many people get a chance to hear. And I really hope that you guys will follow this podcast, promote this podcast, tell other people. Will be, and you know what? Right now, nobody's going to see this podcast for probably another week. I'm going to have to send it over to Dom, and he'll get it get the production going on it and get it out there. But for now, we're going to stop recording on this one. If you want to stick around here for a few minutes, we're going to do podcast number 5. Mr. Paul Lucas, always good to see you, my buddy. I'm going to hit stop recording now. Any last words before I do?
Thanks for watching.
All right. And we are